18.2b assignment. If you already watched my other video, even though it looked like it had problem numbers on it, that was just notes. These are actual problems from your assignment. Almost took too long to do this. I've got some people already trying to submit this assignment without having any even answers to check. So let's do a few. This time I'm definitely only going to do even problems because I did plenty in the notes and it is all really review. So let me see what I have here. We are going to figure out the measurement of the angle, and this one starts with 85 degrees down here. So we're going to be definitely dealing with it in degrees. Number 2 has lots of little curves in it. So let's look at what we have. Remember that, don't have to label this, but I think it helps. We have 0 degrees, we have 180 degrees, we have 360 degrees, which is exactly in the same place as 0 degrees. I want to see what I have. I have one full circle. So I have 360 degrees. And then let's see. Well, let me decide first because I always forget this. Does it go up first or down first? It goes up first. That means I'm going to have a positive answer. Don't have to write the plus sign. It just reminds me that I've already thought about it. So one full circle, and then right in here, I have another full circle. So another 360 degrees. Then I have, do I have another full circle? Not a full circle. I'm going to look at it a little at a time. I've got that, which is 180 degrees. What else do I have that I know? I have, say, another 90 degrees right there. And then I have some more. And this more that I have is already labeled for me. It's 85 degrees. I've got all except for that teeny tiny little bit right there. Now all I gotta do is grab my calculator and add that up. So that comes out to be 1,075 degrees. And that's all we're looking for in that problem. If you didn't put that plus sign in front, it'd still be right. Not if you erase half your answer. Sorry about that. That's good. Number 4, I'm not going to put it in writing, but a whole quadrant. 90, oh, maybe I will just put it in writing because it's so simple. It's negative answer because it's going down first instead of up first. And how far did it go? 90 degrees. Negative 90 degrees. So let's do one of those in radians. This time, not a full circle around. But I still need to think about 0, 180. No, I'm in radians, so 0, pi, and 2 pi. But because the only fraction I know has a 6 on the bottom, I'm going to call this 6 pi over 6, because 6 over 6 is still 1. And I'm going to call this one 2 times 6, 12. Again, notice that when I got the one for the other side, I multiplied the top by 2, but I didn't multiply the bottom by 2. If I multiplied the bottom by 2, I'd have 12 pi over 12, and that still reduces down to just 1, and that's not what we want there. So what do we have? I have a section right here, which I know is 6 pi over 6. I have a section right here. Well, I have to say that if half a circle is 6/6, then a quarter circle, a quadrant, is 3 pi over 6. So I'm adding on another 3 pi over 6. And then finally, that last section they labeled it for me and told me that was pi over 6, which is 1 pi over 6. So 6 plus 3 plus 1 gives me 10 pi over 6, which is very true. But we can't leave it that way, because I can see that 2 goes into the top and the bottom. 2 goes in the top 5 times, 2 goes in the bottom 3 times. 5 pi over 3. That's my answer there. Let's look at the next section. Draw an angle with the given measure in standard position. And I just don't know how there are people in the last quiz who did not draw their starting ray. I always do it first. I always put an arrow on it. And I'm going to do that on every problem that asks me to draw an angle. In fact, I'm going to the next page, and I'm going to do it right here while I'm still thinking about it, so I don't forget it. So that no matter what else I do, I will have that. When you take a homework quiz, if it was real school, when you took your test, well, this is real school, it's just not in-class school. You would lose a half a point every time you forget to put your initial ray with an arrow on it. Put that on your paper right now if you haven't already done that. I'm going to do a negative angle. And a negative angle means I'm going to go down. And I don't want to go, if I want a full circle around here, that'd be 360 degrees. That is not what I want. I can say that negative 325 degrees is what I need, or what I want. Let's draw what I know. Here's 0. Here's 180. Here's 360. I can say, let me just draw 180 degrees. So I've taken care of 180 degrees of that. That is negative 145 degrees. So I can say again that this is what I want, this is what's done, and this is what's left to draw. I need to go 145 degrees more. Well, I think that if I continue this curve up to here, that'd be another 90 degrees. This is what's now done. And negative 145 plus 90 degrees is negative 55 degrees. So I have to look at that next. This is now my new number for what's left to draw. You do not need all those words. That's just for you to look at and see what I just did. If I went to the center of this section, that would be 45 degrees. I need to go past the center because I need to go not 45 degrees more, but 55 degrees more. So I'm going to keep on going just a little bit past the center. Draw this line right here. Maybe too close to the center. Just a tiny bit past the center there. And again, I have arrows. It almost looks like I put an arrow on this side, and I don't want an arrow on this side. So I'm going to take that off of there. Make that a straight shot around. It's not 360 degrees in the negative direction, so it doesn't have to spiral. It just goes from beginning to end, and it leaves me with, if I put 55 degrees right here, out of my 90, leave me 35 left in here. Let me see if they ask for the reference angle. Directions don't say I have to do the reference angle. If I did have to do the reference angle, that would be the reference angle. Because the reference angle is always the distance from the ending ray, which is this one, to the nearest part of the x-axis. And in this case, it is closer to that 0 than it is to the 180. Since the numbers are not required, it wouldn't matter if I didn't put degrees on that. They're not part of my answer. But I hate to leave it that way for you to look at it later and go, how come she didn't have to put the degrees there? Okay, let's look at the next page. We're drawing an angle again. This time we're doing it in radians. I picked out one that didn't have a 2, 3, 4. You know how my hands are always so messy writing on the overhead? I'm finding that I'm still trying to just use my finger to wipe away instead of moving my orchestra. Okay. So I'm going to say, if it has those on the bottom, then you can kind of reduce it down to drawing a full circle until you have it down to something that's normally between 0 and 2 pi. And then you can go look at the circle from your notes and figure out where it goes. This one is 0, pi, 2 pi. Because there's a 12 on the bottom, I'm going to make this be 12 pi over 12. That's rather sloppy. Not much better. And then I'm going to make this one be still pi on top, still 12 on the bottom, but 2 times 12 puts 24 on the top. They want me to draw negative 43 pi over 12. That's more than a full circle, because that's, if you look at it without the negative sign, you can say that's more than a full circle. It goes in the negative direction. So this time I know I'm going to have to do some spiraling. So I'm going to start this somewhat close to the center, so I have room to do my spiraling. Do you know what I just did? Did I make it positive or negative? Yes, because I'm starting here. Now, you only need an arrow when you get to the end of that. But some people, as they're working on these complicated ones, they can lose track. So you can throw in some other little arrows in the middle of your line if you want to do that. So what I had was negative 43 pi over 12. And I just did a full circle. So I just did 24 pi over 12. That turns into negative 19 pi over 12. Notice I put in the words again. What I want, negative 43 pi over 12. What I already did, the part that's done, is one full circle, so 24 pi over 12. That leaves me negative 19 pi over 12 left to draw. We're in the negative direction, so if I want, I could call this a negative 12 pi over 12. But let's just say, I need at least 12 more of them, because I need 19. So I'm going to take this and bring it around. And then I'm going to look at what I have done, what I need to do still. I needed a negative 19 pi over 12. I just did 12 pi over 12. And somebody asked me the other day, well, how do you know whether you're going to add it or you subtract it? You do whichever is the opposite sign of what you already have. You could say, actually, I'm subtracting a negative and it's turning into a plus. That leaves me with negative 7 pi over 12. That's how much I have left to do. Put in the words again. What I want, negative 19 pi over 12. What's already done, 12 pi over 12. Still have negative 7 pi over 12 left to go. Let me think about my numbers on my unit circle again, my circle. If a half a quadrant is 12 pi over 12, if half a circle is 12 pi over 12, then a quarter of a circle, which is called a quadrant, would be 6 pi over 12. So every quadrant, this one, this one, this one, this one, each quadrant is 6 pi over 12. So I'm going to do 6 pi over 12. What do I have left to do? Another negative pi over 12. If each quadrant is 6/12, and I just want 1/12, I need to make a new line that's just a sixth of this little quadrant. Put an arrow here, put an arrow on my ending ray, and there is my picture. There's a lot of work that I put on the sidelines, and you don't have to do nearly that much work, but I think that it helps for me to show you what I'm doing here. 7 pi over 4. That one you're going to find directly on the unit circle, and you can just draw it from there. Number 11, negative 31 pi over 12. It's going to be a lot like this one. We're going to still start with this and this. We're going to do a full circle, and then we're going to see what's left to draw. Let's go on to the next page and see what else we have to do here. I'm going to do the ones where say find a reference angle. And they didn't show me the picture this time. They just want me to find the reference angle. I'm going to look at number 16. Again, this one's, we did in the notes, I said, show me your work with a sketch and or calculations. On the homework quiz I wrote for this section, it's going to say that. Show me some work. Don't just say, oh, I think it's a 52 degree. It's not going to be a 52 degree. So I'm going to look at this, and I'm going to say basic shape. 0, 180, and 360. And the number they gave us is definitely more than 360. If I were drawing it, I'd have to draw a full circle and see what was left to deal with. But I'm just going to say negative 510. I want to get rid of my 360. I add 360 because that's a negative, but I could think of it as subtract a negative 360. Gives me negative 150 degrees. This program does not like it when I try to make tiny circles. It thinks I'm trying to circle things up and move them around. Negative 150 degrees. I'm still not between 0 and 360. So, yeah, that was negative 180, but I don't think that's helpful, so I took it off of there. So I'm going to think, what if I add another 360? 210 degrees. Now that it's a number between 0 and 360, you could go look at your notes, look at the unit circle, and figure out where 210 degrees is. But I'm going to come instead and just look at this sketch and say, half of 180 is 90. 90 plus 90 plus 90 takes me to 270 degrees. Plus another 90 takes me back to 360 degrees. But it doesn't really matter for this one exactly where it is. My sketch is just a really, really rough sketch saying, okay, somewhere in here, probably not the exact center, but somewhere in here. Then I have to decide closer to 0 degrees, 180 degrees, or 360 degrees. Well, just from my sketch, I can see it's closer to 180. But if I didn't have the sketch, I could still say, look at those numbers. Which one's it closer to? Subtract 180, and I get a 30 degrees. So the reference angle here is 30 degrees. Now, if for some reason I thought that looked like it was closer to 360, closer to 360, I could go take the 360 and the 210 and subtract those. Is that a number between 0 and 90? If it's not a number between 0 and 90, you know you didn't correctly choose which side is it closer to. There are several more of those in degrees. I did the one that's negative. The rest of them are positive, so I would start with subtracting 360. Subtract 360 degrees until you get it down to something that's normal, that's reasonable to look at. Using just these four numbers, you can determine which quadrant it's in, and then you'll be able to look at the picture, the really rough sketch, and say closer to 0, 180, or 360, and subtract from whichever one it was. Now that doesn't work very well for you if you just started with 645. You said, oh, closer to 0, 180, or 360, because anything over 360 is going to be closer to 360, and that wouldn't be giving your reference angle very well. Okay, I don't know if this is, no, there's another page after this. Find the reference angle in radians. So again, I'm starting with a picture for number 18. And I say 0, pi, and 2 pi. Because it has a 12 on the bottom, I'm going to call this pi 12 pi over 12. And I'm going to call this 2 pi 2 times 12, 24 pi over 12. Okay. Is 13 pi over 12 bigger than that full circle? No. It is bigger than a half a circle. If I wanted to maybe get some idea of these other numbers, half of 12 would be 6. So I'd go 6 pi over 12. So 0 plus 6 is 12, plus 6 is 18, plus 6 is 24. And that's the tops of those fractions. And so really rough sketch. It's got to be over here somewhere. Really, really rough sketch. So then I have to say